Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnana Murtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Tirgunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha, Upashama Prakarana, section 14. The topic is craving. Craving is the source of all evils. Ordinary thoughts in your minds and desires, they come and go. The craving is like carving. See, the history, carvings in Ajanta caves. Carvings become very solid, permanent for a long time. Just to remind you of certain points that go into a chain. First stage is deep unconscious. There are samskaras, impressions. They go to form sanchit karma. They are the source of accumulated storehouse. So all the samskaras that are there, they don't bother you. They are simply there, collected. Out of those samskaras, only a few drops, a pinch of it, has given rise to your present embodiment. So imagine how many embodiments can be await you if you don't attain in life. And that which has given you present embodiment is called prarabdha karma. In your present embodiment, you exercise your self-effort and you create agami karma or kriyaman karma. These two words are synonymous. Means karmas that are now operating in your personality, which will give rise to whatever type of future you want to have. Your future will be defined by your present karma. But the karma that you are doing, a little aspect of that karma goes into your unconscious. The entire karma does not bear fruit. In this divine plan, things are not so easy. You did a good karma. You have read in the scripture, good karma gives you happiness. But with all the good karma you did, nothing comes. There's a law behind it. There are so many other karmas are there. And the fruit of karma, good karma, can come quickly if your purushartha, self-effort, is in a positive direction. But if you have created more negativity, then what was to happen tomorrow will happen 2 years later. You delayed your result of your good karma. To such an extent that your good karma may not give you fruit in this life at all. Waiting for next embodiment. But no karma is ever lost completely. They are all accountable. So that type of karmic movement. But coming back now to simple points, out of those subtle samskaras in your unconscious, led by your prarabdha in this body, vasanas develop. Seeds, samskaras are like seeds. Even if you look at the botanical science, how so many seeds are buried in the earth. And they remain untouched even if the forest is on fire. Later, those seeds will begin to germinate. So samskaras are that type of seeds. Out of them, vasanas. Vasanas have come close to your conscious mind. The very word vasana means you are able to smell it. Vas term, vas, suvas, durvas. Suvas is a good fragrance. Durvas, bad odor. And vasana gives you that vas, durvas. For yourself and for people around you. Sometimes a negative vasana, you may not recognize it. Others recognize it. Because you begin to smell bad. Now, out of vasanas, when they become operative, vrittis arise, thought waves. Just simple little ideas enter in the mind, and they don't matter. They simply go on, you watch, you're walking and we're seeing so many things, so many thoughts arise, and they don't matter. But then, ego comes in. As you are walking, you suddenly saw somebody's wonderful car. First it was just a good car, walked on. But now, the same vritti has become a desire. How is it I don't have it? So vritti becomes a desire. Now desire doesn't bother you so much. But if you go on walking on the same path, looking at the same car, repeating the vritti again and again, now it turns into, in the state of desire, it is like little fire coming up. You can extinguish it. But now it comes to a state of more blazing fire, called Trishna. Same desire becomes craving. Once it has become craving, you can't go back. Now you are driven by your craving. Your craving now will lead you to perform karmas. Since three gunas are always mixed, sometimes a part of your craving can let you do good karmas. because mind has a foxy irrationality. You want to, I'm giving a very crude illustration, you want to have an enemy hurt. Now, therefore, you do some acts of charity to receive the blessings of the Devi, especially Durga Devi. I'm joking. To give you a strength. So in other words, interpreting your virtuous deeds are giving you egoistic strength. I will not go into that detail, but the idea to understand that Krishna, craving, compels you to do all types of actions, virtuous, vicious. Led by these karmas, you experience karma phal, fruits of karma in the form of pleasure and pain. These are your experiences. All that scripture does puts it in only two categories, pleasure, pain. But your experiences will create volumes before you. And all the experiences that you are having, they go back giving impressions in your deep unconscious. So the cycle goes on and on. This cycle has a vulnerable point in the early stage when you are seeing desire coming up from your subconscious. At that state, if you are involved with sadhana and you have developed spiritual sensitivity, then just like a thief is coming and you have noticed it and you do everything possible not to have the thief enter. So similarly, you recognize the negative desire and its consequences and you simply ignore it. Then that desire simply melts away. And the strength of your mind, the mental strength that was being controlled by the desire, that strength will be released. So every negative tendency you control gives you more inner strength. But when you don't control it, when the will is weak, then what was just a little ripple becomes a mighty wave. What was just a little spark becomes a big fire. And the scriptures are focused on leading the soul to a state where all Trishna cravings completely subside. But that again is an allegorical way of saying leading the soul. You don't lead anywhere. It's a revelation of who you are. You lead the reflected sun to discover I am the sun. The lead term is in that sense. Vasishtha continued, O Rama, having lost the awareness of its intrinsic identity with the Supreme Self, the soul in a human being follows the course of the deluded mind and believes in the illusion, I am the body. This point has been being repeated again and again. Soul in you is like the sun. Led by your mind, that sun has taken another role, the role of the jiva, individual soul. Now, individual soul and the mind, they are dependent on each other. And that soul, reflecting in your mind, develops identification with the body. The illusion, I am the body. As illusion, further you can study. Body means physical body, subtle body, pranas, manomaya, mind and senses, intellect and ego, all this called sukshma sharir. And then the fifth layer is called anandamaya, causal state. That in that state is especially experienced by you in deep sleep. Otherwise, you are experiencing all the five bodies every moment. But to be highlighted, your physical body is highlighted when you are awake. Subtle body is highlighted when you are in dream. And causal body when you go to deep sleep. The highlighted way of seeing yourself. Thus deluded, the soul becomes tainted by the impurities of subtle desires, vasanas. And impressions of attachment and hatred. Now, when this is being suggested, when we talk about vasanas and their activity, vasana comes in two stages. Klishta vasana, aklishta vasana. Vasana, that's the basis of all your troubles. Vasanas based upon five kleshas. Avidya, ignorance. How do you practice ignorance? By ignoring the opportunity of listening satsanga, listening to good advice, listening to good guidance. When you go on ignoring it, implying that you are happy with your ignorance, thereby you are allowing ignorance to be intensified. Next, asmita, egoism. Instead of, the mind has no sensitivity to understand what is I am, who am I? But whatever seems easy, the mind grasps. Easiest your body. Where are you? And I'm here. But hand is not you. And due to egoism, there develop raga dvesha. You are never settled within yourself. You will always feel dependent. Ego-led mind does not give importance to your real I am. It's the most insulting to the real I am. Then your life is dependent upon love and hate, like and dislike. And you go on accumulating illusions relating to likes and dislikes. Things that you like, you collect them along. In course of time, you realize they are not so likable. Now you have to handle them in a different way. And so the world of like and dislike is very unstable world. However, that grips your mind. Led by likes and dislikes, karmas develop. Karmas secure your embodiment. In embodied state, fifth klesha becomes highlighted, which is abhinivesh klesha, fear of death. And it's constantly there from the time you are born, time you die. You're always, there is a part, subtle part within, always alert. And of course, as one mind becomes more and more negative, then fear of death takes many more shapes. And all these are fruits from the creeper of craving. Craving is behind all that. If craving moves away and the soul discovers absolute contentment, void of craving, nirvana, the flame of craving has been extinguished forever. That's the state called nirvana, liberation. Craving is like a dark night, rumbling with fearsome clouds. Now it's an allegorical picture of what craving does. Its terrible effect. It gives rise to great delusion and chills the heart by causing terror and shock. You don't have to encounter terroristic people. Craving creates terror within you. So it is very cozy movement. You don't have to look for. Great beings are willing to endure the fires of universal destruction, but they find craving to be intolerable and unbearable. This is the definition of aspirants. Their tolerance is very weak when it comes to craving. They can tolerate anything. Big hurricanes, if the whole world is in commotion, well, they can tolerate it. They can't tolerate craving showing its face. Figure that out. It's not a negative description. Highly spiritually sensitive mind understands the evil consequences of craving and becomes eager to get rid of it. If you are addicted to something unhealthy, first stage sensitivity develops, that is, addiction is bad. So that type of spiritual sensitivity develops. Masses, for them, there are no problem. They are swept by ignorance. So craving becomes a kind of a spicy source. The more you crave, the more you run after pleasure. But you don't understand the troubles they are accumulating beyond measure. But that's a different story. So great beings are willing to endure fires of universal destruction, but they find craving to be intolerable and unbearable. All that is painful, sorrowful, and terrible in this world has proceeded from craving. So the whole world process is a psychological, mystical psychology, psychological problem. From a philosophical point of view, you are never normal until you become nirmal. Normal, everybody knows what it means. Nirmal means mind void of impurities. Those two words match. Craving is like an insatiable wolf living in the cave of the mind. And in order to survive, it consumes the flesh, blood, bones of every person. We have already told you, scriptures, sages didn't have much courtesy. To worldly vision, look at people, oh, how wonderful all this. To spiritual vision, look, how many wolves are there? Gradually chewing up bones, flesh, blood. Not in one embodiment, but embodiment after embodiment. And it is hidden in the cave, so you don't see it. But wolf is there. And the whole world you see, wolf is the one behind it. No one is going to be safe and secure. Let them dance for a while. They are all going to be eaten up by the wolf, Krishna. In other words, if you have Krishna, you are subject to embodiment. Only when you are subject to embodiment that the whole world becomes important for you. You are not embodied, all the past, present, and future have no meaning. They are important through human mind. And human mind itself is dependent upon just little brain set. It's the mystic iPad. So human existence and the pride of personality is absolutely a little drop of vanity. So craving is like an insatiable wolf. It consumes flesh, blood, bones of every person. From embodiment to embodiment, not in one life, goes on. Like a shallow stream, it reduces itself to a small pool of water. Describing craving becomes deceptive. What seems like only a little temptation, little pool of water. But the moment you go into it, you are fooled. The water becomes, suddenly erupts into big flood. It reduces itself to a small pool of water. thereby creating the illusion that it is insignificant. But soon, without warning, it swells into a mighty proportion, bringing about vast forms of destruction. In brief, a negative inclination, a negative craving should not be given license. Take license away from it. Afflicted by craving, one feels humiliated. This humiliation here is not the virtue of humility. It simply means you lack self-dependence. You don't find yourself having any strength unless someone has to do something. Everything depends. The more craving, greater is your feeling being helpless. Greater is your awareness of your weakness and lack of confidence. That goes in a mathematical way. He becomes disheartened, and the luster of his face vanishes. Now the result will be, as you feel inwardly weak, the result is the very appearance of your personality will be sad, sorrowful. He grieves, sighs, weeps, swims in the sea of sorrow. This is a general description of 110%. Craving like a virulent serpent living in the hollow of human heart continues to envenom the person's pranas. How does craving create terror? Prana is the one that gives your life all the spur of joy and all activities, pranas. Prana, apana, vyana, samana, and they course through your nerve channels, nadis, and that presents the thrill of your life. But the craving has come, all this goes into turmoil. Pranic balance is disturbed. So therefore, your nervous system gets affected. Your mental state gets affected. Life, therefore, will not be ideal life. So life has that problem. If craving is allowed to dominate, then you are going to suffer physical ailments as well as mental deficiencies. And your external story will be full of misfortune. Blessed is the man who has not been consumed by the cankers of cravings. Blessed is the man, blessed is the one who attains enlightenment. Blessed is he who has survived the dark and fearsome night of craving. As long as life is flowing on under the pressure of craving. It's a kind of a living through dark nights, but being an owl, it doesn't matter. Because of mood buddhi, dull intellect, it doesn't matter. People continue to live. Blessed is he who has survived the dark and fearsome nights of craving and led himself to the auspicious light of the moon. Moon here refers to your bhavana shuddhi. The feeling within your heart shines with the spiritual nectar, bliss. But that happens when craving moves away. But as long as craving has dominated the cave of your heart, that type of profound joy you don't experience. This terrible stream of craving flows on in waves of grief and delusion. Life led by craving goes on presenting so many situations of deluded activities. Led by that, lot of regrets. Led by that, lot of grief. In brief, all this is paid for. Ignorant souls are caught by delusion and are tossed by its waves. They are ever immersed in worrying about wealth, property, and perishable objects of the world. Whole life goes worried about wealth, property, and objects. Objects also relate to your relatives, near and dear ones, and your attitude towards friends and enemies. All these are objects. Even the misery caused by the advancement of old age does not induce as much blindness and debility as the growth of craving in one's heart. This is a profound statement. Try to understand, there is a statement, Trishna na jirna vayameva jirna. Craving does not decay. Craving doesn't grow old and die. But if craving enters, even if you are young, youthful, you can't enjoy youthful state. You are as if decaying within yourself. So even in youthful body, you are actually aging. If you don't have craving and moved on a spiritual way, then even in an aging body, you are youthening. Choose which you like. tempted by the greenery of grass, deer are trapped by dark pits into which they fall. Much in the same way, tempted by the alluring promises of craving, people fall into the dark pits of the world process, and there whirl through the cycles of birth and death for an indefinite period of time. It is because of craving that the soul is caught in the world process. It is the craving that blows as wind, stands immutable as mountains, and sustains all beings by the ropes of karmas. Just a poetic description of the power of craving. This world process of repeated embodiments is sustained by craving alone. That's what the whole highlight of Buddhistic philosophy. Craving, Krishna. And the goal is extinguish this flame of craving forever, not ordinary extinguishing. One hand extinguishes, another hand burns it. Arising out of ignorance, this ego sense gives rise to the poisonous creeper of craving. The craving is given rise on the basis of egoism. When the illusory notion of differences caused by the awareness of I, you, they, and multiplicity of the object is removed, this craving is destroyed. What's being said is advanced state of understanding. As long as the world of multiplicity is real to you, the craving will continue. But when you begin to understand the world of multiplicity is not the reality, it's like a mirage, it's like a long dream. Once you know it is a dream, you're securing any object of the dream has no meaning. Not a needle point of land. Mahabharata talks about it. Not a needle point of this entire universe is going to stay in the state of liberation. Arising out of ignorance, this ego sense gives rise to the poisonous creeper of craving. When the illusory notion of differences caused by the awareness of I, you, they, and multiplicity of objects is removed, this craving is destroyed, resulting in the realization of the self. Therefore, O Rama, do not entertain the ego sense, egoism, ahamkar, the worst of all cars, in your consciousness. Section 16, more insight into renunciation of vasana. Sri Rama asked, O sage, it is indeed difficult to renounce craving in the form of ego consciousness. Since the ego sense and the pranas are interdependent, it seems to me that by renouncing ego, one must renounce the physical life as well. So, what's being straightened out is that when you, scriptures say you should renounce ego, you renounce I am. All the thrill of your life is based on your I am. And you want to renounce it. And even the very idea of gaining an insight, all this is perishable. That's very shocking, that the ego that gives you all happiness, etc. In simple way to understand, everybody hears, one day I have to pass away. I have to pass away. That the I that relates to death, that I is waiting for terrible experience. And it will happen. But what Shama says, willingly to get this ego out, that's not an easy job. Of course, we have pointed out, if you don't get the ego out, you turn the ego transparent. Because ego itself has no reality. You are afraid of snake striking against you, and the answer is, get the snake out. But the reality is, snake is not there, only rope is there. So how will you get the snake out? So understand these subtle intricacies. Sage Vasishtha explained, O Rama, the wise seers have enjoined two types of renunciation. That of Jnaya Vasana Tyag and Dhyaya Vasana Tyag. Two words are used, Dhyaya. Dhyaya means allow your mind to understand, go on developing reflective experience about the falsity of worldly pleasures. The Dhyaya Vasana, the more you Dhyaya, more you do Dharana, Dhyan, in that direction, greater it will become your detachment from objects of the world. But this will be always in a process. The goal behind Dhyaya is Jnaya. Jnaya, to know that all that world that you go after for happiness, that world is not real. So the Jnaya state burns up the seed of vasanas. Dagdha bija state. Simply you are staying with Dhyaya, seeds have not burnt. So your dhyana must lead you, in another way to understand, your dhyana must lead you to samadhi. But you have to understand the meaning of samadhi. A yogi who has attained intuitional knowledge of the self experiences the world as nothing but Brahman. This is the Jnaya state. The entire world is false. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The whole world is false. The I am Brahman, Am Brahmas. That's Jnaya Vasana Tyag. When that has happened, then all vasanas burn up, figuratively speaking. They will not germinate ever. But in order to reach that, your mind must start working with listening, reflection, meditation, and your integral yoga in daily life, so that you gradually begin to understand layer after layer. Your physical body is not the reality. Your vital forces themselves are not real you. They are instruments. Mind is not the reality. I'm giving you again highlighted, but the point is progressively you develop detachment from the world of time, space, causation, and more attachment to God within you that transcends all. Detachment from the unreal world, attachment towards the real, truth within. Let me explain the nature of Jnaya Vasana Tyag. Jnaya Vasana is the sadhana to practice. Jnaya Vasana is the Siddhi state. There are two types of ego. One which is dependent upon body, senses, mind, and intellect. Thus is a sustainer of human relationships as friend, wife, wealth, possessions. And the other one is pure I am. Jnaya Vasana Tyag is going after your Amkar, which is your practical reality in this world. All the relations, all the objects, all are real on the basis of that ego, ahamkar. That ahamkar, out. Out of the car or the car. And let the real aham rise. The real aham is I am. I am, real I am is Brahman, Am Brahmas. But that I am, real aham, has gone into mayhem and created an unreal I am. Remove the unreal I am, realize the real. Simple. With this we conclude. Om Triyambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhana Urvarukam Bandhana Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukhabhag Bhave Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Hari Om.